And we'll resume with item D5.
Good morning.
And I'll just give an intro for the public and then take. Do you want me to do this, Richard? So it's
Sure, thank you.
yeah, the Lassen Family Services Sexual Assault Awareness Month is this topic, is item D5 on our agenda. Hi.
Hi. My name is Michelle Latimer. I am the Deputy Program Director for Lassen Family Services. I'm here today regarding two proclamations for the Board of Supervisors. One is in awareness of April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. That is a national recognition, and also for April 6th through the 12th, that is National Crime Victims Awareness Week. Lassen Family Services received a grant from the Office of Victims of Crime. They are the administrators of the Federal Victims of Crime Act funds, better known as VOCA. And Lassen Family Services is commemorating 30 years of progress on behalf of crime victims since the inception of the Victims of Crime Act of 1984. Additionally, in April 2014, we recognized Sexual Assault Awareness Month and acknowledge and thank the courageous victims and advocates who have laid the groundwork for the ultimate goal of a fair and balanced justice system that treats our victims with dignity and respect. As we commemorate the past 30 years, we must do so facing forward into the future with a renewed sense of purpose, and I consider it an extraordinary privilege to work for Lassen Family Services as an advocate for crime victims in Lassen County. Today I ask that the Board of Supervisors join us in proclaiming April as Sexual Assault Awareness Month and April 6th through the 12th as Crime Victims Awareness Week. I would also like to invite the board to participate in our first annual Welcome Mile event on April 12th at 10 o'clock
Where is that at?
at Lassen Family Services.
Well, thank you. Is there any comments of the board members? Thank you very much for bringing this item. It's obviously very serious, very worthy of what we're about to do, so thank you.
Thank you.
For the presentation.
I have additional copies for signature.
Well, we'll only sign one and I'll get that back to you. I think we'll have it.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to talk on this item? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. The action requested is to adopt the proclamation.
I would probably second that.
Thank you. Okay. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of the proclamation, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Passes unanimous. And thank you again for your efforts bringing that forward. Okay, we'll move to item D6, Lassen Family Services.
That was actually
We did D5 and 6.
yes.
Jeez, you guys are tricking me. Taking advantage of my 3 hours of sleep.
We need a second motion to.
Yes, please.
So this,
I make a motion to adopt, please.
Thank you.
I'll second.
all right, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. We'll take our 10:25 recess. Okay. D8, Fish and Game Commission. The subject is resolution, California Department of Fish and Wildlife supporting an increase to the number of archery and muzzleloader big game tags.
Mr. James Boyce
Good morning, everybody, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board this morning. I trust that all the board members have had a chance to review our cover letter as well as the resolution itself. And essentially what we're requesting is a resolution in support of our request to have the Department of Fish and Game look at the lack of muzzleloader seasons that currently do not exist in many of our hunt zones that we have here within Lassen County for deer, antelope, and elk. One of the things that the commission is concerned about, including this lack of hunting opportunity, is the fact that younger hunters whom we're trying to recruit into that type of recreation are really the future of hunting in California. And we're quite concerned that the hunting recreationists in this state are aging, and aging fast. A lot of them look like me, and I'm 68. And I'm thinking to myself, and along with the other members of the commission, is we need to get more younger people involved in our sport. And young people seem to be interested in muzzleloader hunting and archery in particular. So we really, really need to recruit these hunters. And we think that by providing more opportunity for hunters in these zones for deer, elk, and antelope in Lassen County will go a long ways, not only in providing recreation for our younger hunters, but also since many of these hunters come from out of the area, it would be a good revenue stream not only for the Department of Fish and Game, or Fish and Wildlife as they call themselves these days, but also for the county. What we're requesting is a 10% archery allocation, 10% muzzleloader, and 80% rifle. And these are very conservative figures. And in some zones, they are currently doing that, but a number of these zones do not have muzzleloader or we feel it's not enough archery tags in them. In the resolution itself, I would like to note a couple of omissions. I obtained the resolution that had been typed up by the county, and it omitted a couple of zones in the fourth paragraph. Whereas there are no muzzleloader hunting seasons in zones X1, X3A, X3B, or C4, that should also include X4 and X7A if that could be included in this resolution as well.
Do we know who typed it?
I typed it.
Okay, can I get a new one?
Yes, ma'am, you'll have it this afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
I think our resolution that we had given to the county included those zones, but
No,
they did not?
no.
Okay. Well,
That was
we're all
my
human,
error.
we do make mistakes. And so with that said, we would appreciate the board's support for this resolution to be sent to,
I would recommend the resolution. Second.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to say that yeah, you're exactly, spot on there with, it is an economic benefit for the county, and it will allow more young people to get involved. I mean, it is so difficult to draw, tags in the area and things. And any extra opportunity now afforded the kids for the hunting could only be a good thing. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the work of bringing that forward. Okay, so we have a move and second it. Before we take action, we'll go to the public. Would public comment on this item? Just state your name for the.
Eileen Spencer, Westwood. I don't know what a muzzle-loaded can someone tell me what a muzzle-loaded means?
a muzzleloader is a type of rifle that was used commonly in the 1800s. It loads from the front, and it has an ignition system that's either a cap or a flintlock. Those are typical muzzleloaders. They fire one shot, and then you have to pour black powder or black powder substitute down the barrel, and then the bullet goes in behind them. They're very, very slow to load. If you do miss your quarry with the muzzle loader, by the time you reload, it's already ran off to Modoc County. So,
Are those guns legal in Lassen
Yes.
County?
yes, they are.
Is
Legal
there
in California.
legal in California? Is there a limit on, I mean, I've got to the pawn shop, and they can't buy guns of a certain age because of the law. Do we have, does that make any sense? Do we have
Well-
like old guns that
No,
have an
no.
age?
Muzzle loaders, even though they may be a modern manufacturer, are not under the same regulation. They're considered antiques for all intents and purposes, but they can be of modern vintage or modern manufacture. But they still have a single shot. They still load from the muzzle.
Thank you.
Just one point, for a pawn shop, any firearm manufactured before the year 1890 is considered an antique, and therefore pawn shops can take them without having a federal firearms license. Anything manufactured after 1890 comes under the Federal Act, which requires a federal firearms license to accept it and sell it.
Okay. That was Dawn, for the record.
Oh, Don Armentrout. Loudmouth.
I had a question for you. You talk about increasing the number of tags. I mean, are you gonna increase the 10% archery and 10% muzzle loader? Is that your, I just see an increase in, I didn't see a number or percentage there. I was just curious on that.
Well, what we'd like to do is to see that all of the hunting zones that were in Lassen County have at least that percentage. What they have now currently, Supervisor Elbaugh, is they have what they call a demand draw system.
Right.
And that's based upon the number of people who apply for those tags within a given zone. So in other words, up in your area, say that particular zone up there was allocated 50 tags. Out of that percentage, they'll allocate so many for archery and then so many for rifle. But if there's very few people applying for those rifle tags, or for those archery tags, the Department of Fish and Game will give those tags over to the rifle hunters, and what it does is it lowers the number of tags for archery hunting, and in a sense it suppresses the number of those tags. We feel if you keep them at least at that baseline, it'll promote interest in archery and muzzleloader because the opportunity is there. And some zones, they are meeting those numbers, and other zones they're not. We just feel that it should be done across the board.
Okay, and then my follow-up question is that on the muzzle loader, when do you propose to have that season? Before regular rifle, after regular rifle, in conjunction with archery, or what's your guys' take on that?
We would let the department make those judgment calls, because that, of course, is something that the State Fish and Game Commission will look at. Our concern is to have at least a season in a given year for those particular species in that zone. When they hold it, that's entirely up to them. And there are some concerns about migration and other factors that they may look at, but that would be a department's decision based on recommendations from their unit biologists and from the public.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I agree with all this stuff, because, I mean, hunting is getting to be harder and harder, and we're getting overrun by wildlife, and we're getting overrun by predators. I mean, just for myself personally, I mean, I raise enough legal bucks on my place for all the tags they give out in Zone 5 for antelope.
Where do you live?
Comment on this?
Any more discussion from the board? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor to adopt the resolution, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I don't think so. Chair votes aye. All right. Thanks again, thanks Dawn for your work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Okay, we're gonna quickly take up item H2, administrative services, personnel. This item.
You did that.
We
did
do
that.
that.
I'm sorry,
Okay, look,
H5.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Appointment of the treasurer tax collector, fill the vacancy created by Richard Egan, moving to county executive officer.
Okay, so just for background, I know we went over this last week, but I'm serving the dual role right now under emergency resolution the board adopted December 17th, I believe. That's limited to a maximum of 6 months, which would be June 17th. And there are currently 4 individuals that are running for the office. I think last week the board indicated a reluctance to appoint anyone who is currently in the race for obvious reasons. I think the office deserves to have a full-time incumbent in there for the next, which would be 8 months roughly until the election's decided through the general election. Which brings up the question, what does the board do? Who might they appoint? There are obviously qualifications for the office. Naturally, the assistant in the office would be the second in command, which would normally be the person that would ascend there. That individual, perfectly qualified, is one of those candidates in the election. So the board may be reluctant to go that route. The board could issue a notice for, if there were people out there interested to be appointed for the position. The qualifications are somewhat prohibitive, and the duration of the job is also very short, so I don't know that that's a real viable option. There's one individual in the office that's not running that would technically meet the qualifications, been with the county for a long time, and would be willing to serve in that role if asked. And so I guess I kind of just leave it up to the board what you'd like us to do. I think we need to keep discussing the issue till we come up with some resolution, because it is an important function, and there's a lot of things that are going to happen between now and November, which is the most likely scenario when the election will be decided.
Some other people within the county that have have retired or something that could come in and fill that role as well, Richard, or is that part of the going out and recruiting?
There may be. Their qualifications essentially are a couple of ways you can achieve those: bachelor's degree in accounting, finance, public administration, economics, I think, or 3 years in a senior fiscal management position. I haven't really explored that. Nobody really comes to mind to me, but we haven't explored that in any great detail.
And how would that work with the lady you have in the office now? If she were to move up, and then could she go back down, and how would that work in the office dynamics?
So if a person's appointed to the elected office, they become the elected, even though they're appointed, they become the treasurer tax collector, just like as if they were elected. So when the election is decided, they are, they're essentially out of a job at the end of the term. Now, that's not to say there wouldn't potentially remain a vacancy in wherever they came from that they could fill. The personnel rules allow for the county to rehire somebody into their prior position up to a year after separation if it hasn't been filled. So the decision would have to be made: does the county fill the position, which would ultimately probably be made by that person who's in the position. So does that answer your question?
That person's not gonna wanna take that appointment, if you don't guarantee
Our
they
job
got their
back.
job.
Well, this one may. This,
Unless they're ready to retire or something.
exactly. So it is really a tricky situation. But if the board would like me to explore that, I will. The only reason that I haven't resigned is that I don't want to put the board in an awkward position of not having to make a rash decision on an appointment, so.
I guess if that person is willing to take that appointment, knowing it's a short time, and there's nothing guarantee a reappointment to that job, I mean, that would, you can have that discussion, I guess.
Okay.
I mean, it totally depends on that person's future.
Yeah, and I did discuss that with her, the position is associate treasurer tax collector that we're talking about. I did discuss it with her this morning. She is willing to do that. But there are other options, so I just throw it out there.
Do you want to discuss who it is now, or do you want to?
We can. Her name's Norma Sheets. She's the associate treasurer tax collector. She's third in command behind Nancy in the office. Functionally, there's a really good team in place in the department, and they'll be able to handle it whichever route we go as far as the functionality of the department. So there is just this issue of who signs the documents, quarterly reports, who's ultimately responsible for the investments, and settling with the auditor for the tax rolls and that sort of thing. So, yeah, would you like background on the individual?
I mean, I'd be in favor of getting something on the next normal, regular meeting agenda to make
Okay.
an appointment to, I don't know about the rest of the board, but, to cover our bases until there's a new elected position. So by putting it on the agenda with all the particulars of the
Sure.
people in mind, give the public opportunity to
Okay.
see and, look
Yeah.
into it or whatever. And then we would have a chance to take action at, how do you guys feel?
Well, that's fine. I mean, another question for you, Richard, has anybody else come forward, I mean, offering their services or?
No, but we haven't been really actively looking either, so I don't know. I think because of the duration of the position, it's really not likely.
It seems like the proper thing would be somebody that's already involved in the day-by-day operation of the office.
Right.
Is familiar with it, instead of bringing somebody in. who's
They have to learn it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's too short of a period, you need somebody in the office.
Right, and I'm kind of making the assumption that the election goes to the general because there's 4 involved. It is
Probably,
possible, but I think unlikely that it gets decided in June.
Any other comments before we go to the public? All right, we'll go to public comment. Eileen?
The board has, my understanding is the board has the ability to appoint acting people. It's with the impression that acting means temporary. When you appointed Richard acting CAO, with this logic, does that mean Richard can't go back to his position? Couldn't go back to your position because you were acting? Or did that change when you were hired? Because I don't see the difference, Richard, or the board, I don't see the difference between the situation you have before you and the board's ability to appoint something as acting with the ability to take that back. I don't see any difference.
There's a few differences. I think they mainly revolve around the elected status. So when, using me as an example, when I currently still am, but as an elected treasurer tax collector, the board, and I'm elected by the people, a different category than an employee, a regular employee of the county. When the board appointed me as an interim county administrative officer, they adopted an emergency resolution allowing me to hold 2 offices for a limited period of time, up to 6 months. And there's a provision in the, I believe it's the government code, that allows for those incompatible offices to be held by the same individual for up to 6 months. So at the end, in the natural course of things, at the end of that time, then I would have never resigned the position of treasurer tax collector. So at the end of that time, I would go back. Now, in the case of an employee that is appointed to fill an elected office, or anyone appointed to fill the role of an elected office, they become just like an elected official.
Isn't that up to the board to do permanent versus acting? Isn't that a policy up to the board?
Yeah, we haven't found any provision for acting elected officials. An acting CAO or CEO or department head is an appointed official under the control of the Board of Supervisors. An elected official, once, whether they're elected or appointed, is no longer under the control of the Board of Supervisors.
Okay. Ready, anyone else for a public comment? All right, so what's the pleasure of the board?
Bring it back to the next meeting, I think, start back.
Okay, bring it back with some possible people to appoint.
Would you like us to reach out to others or maybe interested in some fashion?
I mean,
I think you need to talk to Norma, and what you were saying, make sure she wants a job, and if she seems kind of hesitant, maybe you want to reach out. And you want to do that anyway, right?
you know the department better than me. I'm
Right.
comfortable leaving.
You know, in myself, I think you need somebody in the office that's qualified and knows day-to-day operation. They take the job over, they gotta be running the place. We can't bring somebody in that has no clue. It's just a temporary appointment, it's not a.
And I guess the only other question that we addressed last week is the other individuals that are running. I just want to make it clear, is that the desire of the board that don't entertain anyone that's?
Right.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that's clear, because that's the natural option. Okay. I think that's good enough direction for us.
Okay, thanks. All righty, let's move on to item H8, planning and building services. Save the best for last.
I don't want anybody to die. No.
Aguilera, Planning and Building Services. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Board of Supervisors. Today, we are here to discuss the Planning and Building Services Grants and Loans Division Program Analysis, and the department is requesting for the board to receive the report and provide direction. As you may remember, on February 25th, 2014, at the Board of Supervisors meeting, several items were brought before the board regarding the Grants and Loans Division of the department. And several concerns were raised regarding issues related to some of the programs being administered, specifically the Business Assistance Program. Then the discussion was widened and ultimately resulted in the board's consensus that a more comprehensive overview was needed to understand the division's past and current successes and failures. So this memo is essentially going to hopefully overview and address the following: provide information to the board regarding past and present administration of the programs, provide information regarding funds that are administered by the division, the cost to Lassen County to disperse these funds, and how the funding benefits the public within Lassen County. And finally, provide information to the board to facilitate a more informed decision as to which, if any, programs and projects will be sought in the near future specifically regarding the Community Development Block Grant, Notice of Funding Availability Process, which is going to be the next board item, I believe, which is H9.